Welcome to what's the beginning of Newswire LA's coverage of Los Angeles' race for mayor. Tonight, we're at a candidates forum in South Los Angeles with the top 4 candidates for mayor. That's coming up on Newswire LA right after this. Good evening and welcome to Mount Gilead Baptist Church at 9201 South Normandy Avenue. Tonight we're here for one of the first candidate forums highlighting everyone making the run for the next mayor of the city of Los Angeles. Tonight is part 1 of our 2-part broadcast looking at this all-important race. What you will see are edited questions and answers from the moderator and candidates. I want to take this time to advise everyone that they should make an effort to get out to these forums as they become available. Then and only then will you be able to hear these candidates unedited and unplugged. Tonight we have Eric Garcetti, Wendy Gruel, Kevin James, and Jan Perry, all in attendance. Tonight's event was organized by the Los Angeles chapter of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and is being hosted in the sanctuary of Mount Gilead Baptist Church. It's nearing 6:30 p.m. here in Los Angeles, so let's get settled in and let's get ready to throw it to the pulpit. We'll see you back here at the end of the broadcast.
To the community that we're bringing.
Recently, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference of Greater Los Angeles elected a new president. He was installed on Tuesday evening, and we are delighted to receive him now as the sponsor of his initial event as president of SCLC. The Reverend William D. Smart. Pastor Smart, we welcome you.
We are happy that the candidates have come. We pushed some of them to be here, and they changed schedules around because we really felt that it was important. With all the forums that are going on, it's really important to come deep into South LA and to hear what South LA is talking about, the needs and what our concerns are. I don't want to talk too much because we have a very dynamic moderator who will introduce and take over now. Our moderator is a former chief of staff to a city councilman. He knows how the city is run. He knows everything. I mean, he's knowledgeable in the political arena. Mr. Bob Gay. In just one moment he will be coming. I must admit that one candidate who just came in, that I will scold him for coming in late, but he's not late to get up here, so I can't argue, is all of these candidates are friends of mine. I just met Mr. James, and he's become a friend of mine. But Mr. Garcetti changed and shifted around, and he will have to leave. Hopefully, he has to leave at 7:30. He had an event that he shifted, he cut, he moved around to be here. I made him do that, and so yeah, that's right. This is SCLC. One of the things under my leadership, we'll never be treated short like we're a junior brother, as Dr. Milana Karina talks about. We expect the best because we're going to deliver you the best. And we have one of the best moderators that the city can offer, Reverend Bob Gay. Let's give him a hand. It's in his hand.
Let us invite the candidates to take their positions up here. We thank all of you for coming out tonight. We know that you have very, very busy schedules. The candidates have all been informed of the format. Now let me let you know what the format is. I will ask a series of 5 questions. We will rotate those questions so that we may start with the candidate directly to my left, and then we'll proceed with the second question going in that direction. First question. What steps would you take to resolve the looming city budget shortfall for fiscal year 2013 through 2017?
3 things are important. 1, to live inside our means. Every household and every business has to do that. And I've shown the past 3 or 4 years that we can balance budgets by coming together with our unions, by looking at things like pension reform, our healthcare costs, and the number of workers that we have. Sometimes we need to raise new revenues, and we've shown that as a way forward as well. But to me, the most critical way, which will help somebody who's out of work in South Los Angeles and balance our budget, is jobs. We need to grow our economy. And I'm the candidate for mayor with the best track record of being able to provide jobs in one of the poorest districts in the city, the 3rd poorest district of 15, where 2 years running, the Chamber of Commerce, when they look at each different district, has said we're #1 in job growth, #1 in new business starts. I want to guarantee that every young person in this community who wants a summer job, like in the good old days, has a summer job. Because that drops crime, which means we have to spend less on policing, which means we have more money to balance the budget, and it means they're paying taxes, which again becomes part of that virtuous cycle. I want to see small businesses help. Here, where we see empty storefronts, where we see too many places where people have to get in a car or on a bus to go out of the community and don't spend their money right here. I want to recycle South LA dollars in South LA. And lastly, I want to make this a more business-friendly city. I want to take that small business and give them the opportunity to get on their feet because they're not paying a local city business tax that chases them either out of business or over the border.
But as we stand here today, we're talking about how we deal with the budget. And the first thing that we have to talk about is about job creation. It is all revolving around job creation. I'm proud that I was the architect of business tax reform in 2006, working with the Greater Los Angeles African American Chamber and chambers across the city of LA to ensure that we were focusing in on helping small businesses. I'm proud that when I worked for Mayor Tom Bradley, that we provided the kind of economic opportunities and the funding necessary to create those jobs. But today, those jobs are not happening in South LA at the level and the numbers that we need to have. We need to have someone in the mayor's office who is the job czar, who is bringing those businesses into the community and ensuring that in every part that the jobs are going to people who live in that community. To make sure that the city of Los Angeles is part of a partner and not part of the problem. And so as we look at jobs, one of the things that's critically important is having an educated workforce. And it shouldn't matter what zip code you live in, what kind of education you're going to have. So as we look at the city's budget, our revenue is critically important. It means having a strong port, a strong airport. It means having tourism. It means making sure that we also have the kind of manufacturing and the clean tech corridor and the kinds of jobs that we want to see happen. And creating hubs of economic activity, particularly in South Los Angeles. But it also means looking at how we're managing our dollars. As a city controller, I've identified more than $160 million of efficiencies and waste, fraud, and abuse, things that we could do differently to help balance our budget. Because we have to stop the cycle of crisis, of layoffs, and furloughs, and not providing the kinds of services that are so necessary.
The question on what I would do to solve the budget problem in Los Angeles. We have to deal with revenues, and we have to deal with costs. First of all, in dealing with revenues, we must, and I will, make Los Angeles a business-friendly city again by presenting a business improvement package in the first few days of taking office that will consist primarily of 2 things: real business tax reform and permitting reform in the city of Los Angeles, because existing businesses and new businesses can't have all the red tape that stands in their way of wanting to grow in our community. And secondly, on the cost side, we have to budget our city with long-term solutions. That means pension reform and, yes, salary reform to save the jobs of our city workers. Because when our city workers are not working in the city, services are not being provided across the city. And we have elected officials today that have overspent. And now, can you believe it? When you hear the news that Los Angeles is on the brink of bankruptcy, because it's shocking to me and it's shocking to the country. And that's why we need new leadership. And thank you.
Thank you.
But I love this city very much, and I want to be honest with not only the people who live here, the people who work for the city of Los Angeles, about the state where we find our budget. We've furloughed, we've early retired, we've cut. It's been hard, it's been painful. Our services have been reduced. That's what we had to do at the time we were in a worldwide recession. But I do not want to have the city continue like that into the future forever and ever and ever, with term limits kicking in and people moving forward into other positions, and the people get left behind. As next mayor, I've already demonstrated that I can bring new revenue to the city. 90,000 new jobs here in the city because of the projects that I have built, putting people back to work from Job Corps, from Trade Tech, from PD jobs, from the Coalition for Responsible Community Development, making sure that when developers did projects, they hired from within the community, because that's how you put people back to work. Building 5,000 new units of housing for families who work, people who are formerly homeless, women running from domestic violence, and people who just need some stability in their lives. Making sure that we move forward on the exposition line so that we can build a future for South Los Angeles. And if we don't get out of our cars, our children and our grandchildren will get out of our cars. And to work with LAUSD, I was just at brand new high school at 88th and San Pedro today, worked on a joint use agreement with them in Green Meadows Park, so they have expanded recreational space and a brand new high school. Thank you.
Question number 2. As of today, there are 3 competing ballot initiatives, and the Los Angeles City Council has put forth an ordinance, or asked the city attorney to put forth an ordinance to regulate marijuana dispensaries in the city of Los Angeles. The California Attorney General has indicated in a letter to the California State Legislature that she is concerned about the influence of gangs and organized crime in community marijuana dispensaries. If elected mayor, how do you balance the legitimate medical needs of some patients with the issues of crime, zoning, proliferation, licensing, and monitoring of these businesses to protect neighborhoods? Please be specific. Ms. Girl, you go first.
What we need to do is ensure that there's the right kind of zoning and planning. The council and the city attorney have gone back and forth depending upon the laws and the different things that were put forward as to where it would be allowed. 3 proposals, which is going to be confusing to the public, and even now, they're just coming forward. What we need to do is look at those community plans and have succinct, direct rules as to where they can go and the kinds of issue of public safety. And to be able to ensure that our police department has the laws to be able to enforce those that are taking advantage of allowing for that medical marijuana. It is about enforcement, it's about zoning, it's about placement, and it's compassion for those that need the marijuana. As many of you have heard, one of our colleagues, Councilmember Bill Rosenthal, who was diagnosed with cancer, has medical marijuana as part of his survival and pain reduction. And so it is important there is a face to those who are using medical marijuana, but it cannot ruin our communities and our neighborhoods by not having that enforcement and focusing in on the rules that everyone has to follow.
So we must find a fair way for patients, not 19-year-olds who show up with glaucoma all of a sudden. Specifics. We need the original number of medical marijuana facilities. They need to be divided up evenly among each council district. And we need to have regulation in partnership with the state and the LAPD, as well as the feds, because keep in mind, as Ms. Gruhl mentioned, ideally, this is a medicine that will be available in your neighborhood pharmacy, but it's still a Schedule I narcotic according to the federal government. So for us to be able to dispense the drug here responsibly, we need to have a partnership with the federal government, and we must keep the cartel weed out. And there's a way to test it to make sure we do. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Perry.
Thank you very much. Well, first and foremost, this is a field that we have never had to deal with before in a government process. So we're still finding our way. I've represented South Los Angeles and downtown for the last 11 years, and I know full well the implications of gang activity in providing organized criminal activity another gateway to launder money or to go directly and to hurt people on their blocks, and I'm extremely mindful of that. So what I want to see when the city attorney comes back with this language is that ability to tax, if that's what the vote, if that is the will of the voters, that this be self-funded, cost neutral, and that there is the ability to regulate. Otherwise, I don't want to do it. And I don't know that I'm going to vote yes, but I don't know what the rest of the city will do. Thank you.
We need help to be able to actually go in and to make sure that these drugs are out of the hands of young people, that we have a regime. And the first two, by the way, weren't put on by the city council. You might have misunderstood if you listened to the earlier statements. Two were put on by folks out there gathering signatures. There's a third that we're putting on to try to at least say, of all of these, this would be the best way forward, to do exactly some of the things that I think all three of us have talked about. Keep this away from schools and churches and other sensitive uses, making sure there's a limited number that goes back to the original amount, which I think is a good number. And then also to charge a fee so that we can actually have enforcement to get the bad ones that are linked to organized crime, that are the bad actors, out of our communities, because my district has been beset by probably the most or many of these, and as soon as you take one down, it's like whack-a-mole. 2 or 3 more jump up, and we don't have the resources to go after them. Charging a fee will go there. And one last thing I'd like to add a little different as well is I want to make sure that we have some standards and whatever we can do for good workers to be there. In fact, we have, I know many members of the union here today. I know that the United Food and Commercial Workers Union, which my grandfather and grandmother were both members of, are trying to organize so that we can make sure we don't have more low-wage jobs. And for folks who work in the medical industry, who work in dispensaries just as people work in pharmacies, we should have a living wage, we should have benefits, and we should make sure that they have decent working conditions as well.
Recently, there have been a series of incidences of alleged brutality at the hands of LAPD related to citizens in custody. Do you propose any changes in training and tactics by LAPD officers to mitigate this growing problem of citizen deaths, injuries, and lawsuit settlements? If so, specifically, what would you propose to the police commissioners you appoint and to Chief Beck?
Now, a number of things need to happen. We need to make sure that not only do we have this kind of crime prosecuted just like any other crime. It is a crime of violence, and it is arguably worse because you have someone that has been entrusted with the public good who is committing this crime of police brutality. Now, we must have policies in place so that victims and witnesses can come forward